it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
Thursday evening, and it's a very good evening, Zimbabwe. Welcome to the shortened edition of ZiFM Sport. Today is Throwback Thursday, and so fittingly, we take you back into time with our power profiles. For the last few weeks, we've been going down memory lane, casting back to some of the most iconic FIFA World Cups, and this evening, we continue on that epic trail. In 2004, FIFA selected South Africa to be host of the 2010 World Cup. Muzansi's bid, fronted by the iconic now late Nelson Mandela Madiba, beat off the challenge of Morocco and Egypt as football's biggest party came to Africa for the very first time. So between the 11th of June and the 11th of July, 32 nations competed in 10 stadiums located in 9 cities for the right to succeed Italy as world champions after a month-long football carnival, the likes of which the world had never experienced. La Furia Roja, Spain, reigned supreme after edging the Netherlands 1-0 in extra time at Soccer City. My name is Mike Madoda, and joining me to tell the story of South Africa 2010 is Barry Manandi, Chris Midzi, Alois Bunjira. Our producer is Sean Tafirinika. But before we get there, here's your local sports news roundup.
The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
Let's start with cricket, where Ireland Cricket has announced the schedule of Zimbabwe's tour of the European country in August, which will see the two teams clash in 3 one-day internationals and 3 T20 internationals. The two sides were initially set to meet in Harare next month, but the tour was postponed due to Zimbabwe's upcoming assignments against Afghanistan and Pakistan. The one-day international series between Ireland and Zimbabwe will form part of the World Cup Super League, with 10 qualification points up for grabs in each fixture. On to Paralympics news, where gold medalist Elliot Mujaji says the work for the 3 athletes who qualified for the rescheduled Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games begins now. Albert Singele and Vimbai Zwanda, as well as Pamela Shumba, qualified for the games during the World Para-Athletics Grand Prix, which was held in Dubai. The Paralympic Games are expected to take place from the 24th of August to the 5th of September this year. We wrap it up with news out of the top tier of domestic football, where former Highlanders coach Mark Harrison says he is still keen on returning to the trenches of local football in, of course, the Castle Premier Soccer League. The gaffer, who returned to England after parting ways with Highlanders last year, said he is looking for a job. Asked if he was still interested in local football, where he was in charge of Caps United and Harare City before moving to Boso, Harrison said he would not rule out anything. The British coach said if an opportunity arose, he would certainly consider it.
Hi, I'm Warriors coach Zdravko Logarušić, and you are listening to ZiFM Sport.
Sports with a difference. Z.
Taylor, what's he say? It's a really good ball. It's Shabalala! Goal! Bafana! Bafana! Goal for South Africa! Goal for all Africa! Jambu Lila! Rejoice! Bafana! Bafana have popped the first cork on their day of days!
We want to hear your memories of the 2010 World Cup. Did you make the journey into South Africa? Do let us know on our social media handles, Facebook and Twitter at ZiFM Sport. Now, if you do remember, the official match ball for the 2010 World Cup, which was manufactured by Adidas, was named Jabulani, which means bringing joy to everyone in Zulu. It was the 11th World Cup match ball made by the German sports manufacturer. It featured 11 colors representing each player on a team, as well as the 11 official languages of South Africa. But for that month, South Africa, no, Africa, no, the world came together to speak only one language. That language, the beautiful game. Barry, I know for certain you made the trip into Mzansi to take in the action. And what did you make of South Africa's World Cup?
It was absolutely fantastic. I think they hosted a brilliant spectacle. The football on the pitch was great, and everything, all the amenities around the tournament were absolutely excellent. I only managed to watch one game, and that's disappointing, but it is my only World Cup game so far, and it was brilliant. I watched the game between Germany and Ghana, which ended 1-0 to Germany, but Ghana qualifying for the knockout rounds. It was a group stage game, so absolutely happy. If anything is a legacy of Sepp Blatter, he gave us an African World Cup.
An African World Cup. Alois, you were in South Africa, then resident in South Africa, still playing some footy, and you were right in the middle of the carnival.
Yes, Mike, it was actually a brilliant time. It was a memorable time for all Africans, but especially for South Africa. You know, we were there and we saw all the build-up to the World Cup. It was not just 2 years before the World Cup, it was a whole lot of like 5 years before the World Cup or so, and we saw the development that happened not just for football. You know, infrastructure wise, South Africa developed so fast because of the World Cup. That's where all the main highways were rebuilt and developed, made bigger. It was actually a very interesting time at that time, and you could actually sense that there was something big that was coming. And by the time it was 1 year to go, we could actually feel the excitement. We could actually sense it, that it was coming, and it was actually brilliant.
Alois, you talk about 1 year before the World Cup. You were sharing dressing rooms with some of the South African players that would feature for Bafana Bafana. No doubt these are guys that you'd hang out with again, even when you were not playing football. Tell us about their sense of excitement, their anticipation, how much they were looking forward to representing Bafana Bafana and representing Africa at this World Cup.
The excitement was out there, Mike. You could actually tell that there was actually pandemonium, you know, amongst the players. Everybody wanted to be in that national team. Nobody wanted to be left out. So even the league itself, it grew bigger and it grew more exciting because every player was giving maximum effort to actually be part of the World Cup. You know, the good thing was that Peter Mosimane was actually there. He was a local coach, so he could actually see the players through and through. So it was actually a pair of South Africans who were playing in South Africa. They knew that they had a chance to play in the World Cup because of Peter Mosimane, who was right there on the ground. Unlike other nations where you have your foreign coach who stays in the foreign country, only comes for matches. But they knew that Peter was watching each and every game and he was focusing. So it was actually quite exciting to actually be with the guys, talk about it, and the amount of effort that they put in to be actually involved in the real thing, the World Cup. Nobody wanted to be left behind.
South Africa was excited, and no doubt Africa was excited, Chris. If you take a look at our participation, this is the World Cup where we had the highest amount of participants at a FIFA World Cup. We had 6 in total as a result of South Africa qualifying as hosts, and South Africa was joined by the likes of Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, I think Algeria was there, so was Nigeria and Cameroon. So it was a big party for Africa.
Yeah, big party for Africa on the African continent as well. Previously, only 2 nations had ever been to a World Cup quarterfinal. That was Cameroon at Italia in 90 and Senegal in 2002. Ghana would become the 3rd nation to do so, and they had some really spectacular performances in South Africa in 2010. But they did miss out on that semi-final glory after like a bit of a controversial end to extra time in that clash against Uruguay. So it was a very big party for Africa. Lots of participants, lots of great football.
Barry, I know you back Ghana on the African continent, and no doubt you were one of those who were sitting slumped after 120 minutes of action and a bit for the penalty shootout, because Ghana was right there. They were on the cusp. They had played brilliant football against an informed Uruguay. It looked like Africa would have a semi-final participant, and then that moment happens. The ball is goal-bound. Luis Suarez, is he a hero? Is he a villain? But he decides to handle the ball on the goal line to prevent it from going in. That goal surely would have meant that Uruguay would have been knocked out of the World Cup. Ghana would have progressed. But there is still a second bite of the cherry, because the ref dismisses Suarez and points to the penalty spot. And Asamoah Gyan had history to make, but he failed. He fluffed his lines.
Could there have been a safer pair of boots to give that penalty kick than Asamoah Gyan? Going into that match, Asamoah Gyan could do no wrong. He was dancing his way through that tournament. And in terms of the quality of the football, Mike, very little is said about the quality of football on that day. I believe in the 2010 World Cup, the best game on show was that game between Ghana and Uruguay. It was phenomenal. But that moment made me hate, loathe, and despise Luis Suarez
until he joined Liverpool.
Until he joined Liverpool, exactly. It was heartbreaking, Mike. It was absolutely heartbreaking, because throughout that game you could see that from the Suli Montari goal rocket and the way that Ghana controlled the game, you could see that Ghana was well in the contest, and we were all singing, "This time is for Africa," thinking Ghana could go all the way. Oh my God.
Oh, it was a bitter end for the World Cup for Ghana. But just taking a look at the other African performances, South Africa failed to get out of their group, but managed 4 points after a win versus France and a draw versus Mexico. Cote d'Ivoire also bagged 4 points, but they too failed to advance out of their group. It was a tough one that had Brazil and Portugal. Nigeria and Algeria only managed a point each in their groups, while Cameroon lost all their 3 matches in South Africa. Now, one of the most controversial things that happened in South Africa is what has been dubbed the French Revolution. France traveled to the 2010 World Cup with heightened expectations after their failures at the Euros just 2 years before, but things spectacularly imploded. There was a strike, there was immunity. Nicolas Anelka was sent home. The players backed the player instead of the coach, and everything just unraveled. Let's hear from Nicolas Anelka, who said that things got out of hand.
T'insultes la mère à un coach, c'est pas tous les jours, tu vois, que tu la mets en une. Donc là,
you insult the coach's mother. It's not every day that they put that on the front page. So in this case, they took it to a new level. That means if this is the Champions League, now we're in the Interplanetary League. See what I mean? And there's no turning back. It was total madness. And we were the victims, you know? The main victim was me. But the other players, they too were taken hostage. They were like, yes, what's this? And then everyone was calling them. They wanted to know if it was true or not, what was going on over there, and everything else associated with it. No, things got heated. Big time.
Z.
Alois, you've got to say that for a nation with a proud footballing history like France, with the players that they had, the likes of Nicolas Anelka, Patrice Evra, Thierry Henry, they were expected to do a lot better than they did. But the problem is that there was no synergy between the coach, Dominic, and his senior players.
Yeah, of course. I think it bordered around the connection between the coach and the players. There was some disorganization in the team, and there was some disconnection between the players and the coach. Like you said, that they had a fantastic team. They still were one of the favorites to actually win the World Cup, because when you look at the players, the roster that they had brilliant world beaters that were in the team, but they couldn't. And they also had players that had won the World Cup in 1998 as well. They were still younger at that time, and at that time now they were actually senior players with all the experience, and you would thought that they had a chance to actually win it as well, but it just imploded. Like we said, it just didn't work out. Probably it was all because of the disconnection between the coach. I don't think they liked the coach. They didn't respect the coach at all. And when you see a situation where players back the player instead of the coach. When there is commotion, then you can actually tell that there is a big problem there. That's why he never lasted as well as a French coach after the World Cup.
And of course, France finished bottom of their group and suffered the indignity of losing to Bafana and ended their campaign with just the solitary point earned from their goalless draw in their opening game versus Uruguay. This is your Power Profile on ZiFM Sport. We are casting back to the 2010 FIFA World Cup, which was Africa's World Cup hosted in South Africa. Just taking a look at some of the big talking points, some of the big moments to emerge out of Mozambique. And perhaps, Barry, from a legacy point of view, you've got to take a look at goal line technology and the march towards VAR. That all began in South Africa, didn't it?
Yeah, it started in South Africa, and largely as a result of that Lampard non-given goal, as it were, against Germany. England, listen, when the ball crosses the line to the extent that it is a full, I would say, 30 centimeters over the goal line, and the referee doesn't give it, the purists argued, saying that that's what we love about the game, because the talk, especially in the British press, went on for a long time about the fact, no, it was a goal, it should have been given, etc., etc. And I think that's when we started. And Sepp Blatter made a promise and said that we will fix it. We'll use technology to fix all of this. And we've seen a fast march in the recent years, where we started with goal line technology. Hawkeye came in, and now VAR has been included. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm sure we'll perfect it as we go. So absolutely, I would say the blue touch paper was lit in South Africa at World Cup 2010.
And Chris, you've got to say a logical decision, because there's so much riding on these matches, especially at a World Cup. It's more than just prestige. There are also millions of dollars involved here, because you know what? The better you perform, the more wins you get, the more advertising dollars, corporate sponsorships that you are able to get as a football association. And so it was a logical thing for FIFA to actually push forward the agenda of VAR as well as goal line technology.
There's definitely a lot riding on every single match, but especially when you get to the quarterfinals, the semi-finals. What you then don't want is for the players, the teams, the staff to then question the integrity of the entire tournament based off of decisions like this, where you have a lot riding on a match like England and Germany. You want people to believe in the systems, and in order to do so, you get the goal line technology and VAR, which is refined over time, but it's important to get as accurate as possible in terms of the results, because of just the sheer amount of money that is riding on each and every single match in a tournament like this.
Well, England knocked out at the round of 16, courtesy of that 4-1 defeat to Germany. It wasn't a particularly good tournament for Europe in comparison to previous tournaments, because they weren't as dominant. South American teams actually performed very strongly, with all 5 advancing to the round of 16 from the group stages, 4 as group winners, and 4 further advancing to the quarterfinals. However, it was only Uruguay that advanced to the semifinals. Now, Alois, it unraveled spectacularly in the quarterfinals for 2 of the favorites, Brazil and Argentina. If you take a look at the players that they had, it was a really disappointing ending to their campaigns. And many people look to the managers, because the managers didn't match the quality that they had in terms of players.
Yes, Mike, most definitely Argentina and Brazil, they disappointed a lot of people, because they went also in the tournament as favorites. More especially Argentina, who had a galaxy of superstars, and Lionel Messi at that time was at his prime. And actually people thought that here we go, this is a team that is going to win the World Cup. I think for many people, they were actually the number 1 team to win the World Cup at that particular time. And the excitement of Diego Maradona as well as the coach, it brought excitement to the Argentinian team. And they started so well in the group stages, and they gave everybody hope that, this is a team that was going places, because in the group stages they were cruising, but they came unstuck in the quarterfinals, and much to the disappointment of a lot of people. And all of a sudden, Diego Maradona was booed, and he was actually looked upon as a bad coach. But I felt sorry for him, because if you look at the first round matches and then the quarterfinal match that they lost, there were 2 different matches altogether, 2 different teams altogether. So it was unfortunate. Brazil as well, they were pale shadow of themselves. The players were there, but the actual football on the playing field, it was not anywhere near the Brazilian style that we know. So we can always attribute that to the coaches. If you have got the arsenal and you can't produce with them, then we can always go back to the coach and ask what happened.
Brazil losing 2-1 to the Netherlands in the quarterfinals. Wesley Sneijder with the brace. Argentina thumped 4-0 by Germany at the same stage. Miroslav Klose with a brace of his own. Everything then led, of course, to the 11th of July at Soccer City in Soweto, where Spain took on Netherlands in the final, Barry. 1-0 it ended, courtesy of Andreas Iniesta. I'm going to hear your thoughts just now, Barry, but before that, let's get to hear from Andreas Iniesta, who spoke about his goal and how Spain deserved to win the World Cup.
Well, they were his teammates, in fact. Well, here's Iniesta saying, I just can't believe it still, because I had the chance to score such an important goal for the Spanish team. It really is quite unbelievable. I just helped as much as I could during the game. It was very difficult. Lots of things happened. In the end, I think that Spain, I think that we deserve to win. This is something to remember forever. We all need to enjoy it, relish it, and to feel extremely proud of every single member of this team, from the first man to the last.
And I don't think there are many people, Barry, who will disagree with Iniesta around the fact that Spain deserved to win the World Cup.
Absolutely, they showed us how football ought to be played. But listen, you and I will always say that Barcelona won the World Cup because you look at Puyol, Piqué, Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta, Pedro, David Villa, Fabregas, all Barcelona linked. And so consequently, with Pep at Barcelona, you look at the way that Spain played and the way Barcelona was playing at the time, tiki-taka. That's exactly what we saw at the 2010 World Cup. Netherlands themselves were well in the game, but they used a bit of brutal tactics, if you like, to try and stay in that game because they didn't have the ball. Spain controlled the ball, controlled the game, won it.
Won it, and it gave them their first World Cup title, becoming the 8th team to win the World Cup. Spain became the first new winner without home advantage since Brazil in 1958, and the first team to win the tournament after losing their opening game at 1-0 reverse to Switzerland at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban. The player of the tournament, Diego Forlan of Uruguay. He was inspirational alongside Luis Suarez in attack for the South Americans. The Golden Boot went to a very young Thomas Müller of Germany with 5 goals and 3 assists. The best young player of the tournament, the same player. And of course, he had an absolutely fantastic breakthrough tournament. But I just want to hear, Chris, from you as we wrap it up, the cultural clash that occurred during that World Cup, the Vuvuzela controversy, because this is the first time that the world was really exposed to the Vuvuzela. The rest of the world didn't like it. In fact, should I say, Europe didn't like it. They absolutely didn't like it, from the players to the TV companies. But what are your thoughts on that? Because, for me, my thinking is that if it's a World Cup, you've got to embrace the host nation and what they bring to the party.
Yeah, you've got to embrace the host nation. And if you look at South African football, South African sport, just going to say South African sport, the Vuvuzela is it's a part of South African sport. It's a part of the celebration. It's a part of the stadium culture. But what you had in 2010 was a situation where critics, your broadcasters like your ESPN, BBC, they were out in front expressing their displeasure, talking about how the commentators' voices were drowned out by the sound. But when you take a look at things like that, it's a very small technicality, because all it would take is adjusting the sound to make sure that the commentators are not drowned out by the Vuvuzela. But when there's no will, because it's something simply different that they're not used to, that there wasn't any sort of adjustments that were forthcoming. So there was that lack of understanding of South African culture. But look, when you're having a World Cup, embrace what's on the ground, embrace the South African way of, football culture.
Exactly, Chris. And in truth, Mike, you're 100% correct, because Now, when you watch images of the 2010 World Cup, you can't mistake it. You hear that drone that sounded like bees in the stands, and you know that's 2010 World Cup. You don't even need to see a graphic. You don't need to hear the commentary. You just hear those bees and the vuvuzelas drowning everything out, and you know it's 2010.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a fantastic tournament for South Africa, one that had a massive effect on the economy, especially tourism. It poured into South Africa 93 billion rand into the local economy, and a survey by Africa Response found that 96% of World Cup visitors to South Africa say that they would possibly return to the country, while 92% would recommend the country to friends and family as a holiday destination. The net result, South Africa's tourism gained 20 percentage points.
Hi, this is Alexandra Maseko, and I'm the national basketball team captain, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take off in Melbourne, where Naomi Osaka claimed an impressive victory over Serena Williams to reach the Australian Open final and end the Americans' latest quest for a record-equaling 24th Grand Slam title. Three-time Slam champion Osaka withstood early pressure from Williams to win 6-3, 6-4. Osaka is on a 20-match unbeaten streak and has never lost a Slam final. The Japanese will face Jennifer Brady in Saturday's final after the American beat Karolina Muchova 6-4, 3-6, 6-4. In the men's side, Novak Djokovic beat Aslan Karatsev to book his place in his final. That was a 6-3, 6-4, 6-2 win for Djokovic. We'll head over to New Orleans, where Damian Lillard capped his 43-point night with a decisive three-point play as the visiting Portland Trail Blazers won their sixth consecutive game by defeating the New Orleans Pelicans 126-124 early this morning. The Blazers finished an undefeated three-game road trips thanks in part to Gary Trent Jr., who added 23 points, as well as key contributions from Derrick Jones Jr., Carmelo Anthony, and Robert Covington. We'll touch down in Europe, and we'll go right across Europe this time. Cristiano Ronaldo's first game for Juventus in his native Portugal ended in a 2-1 defeat as FC Porto outplayed the Italians for much of their Champions League last 16 first leg tie last night. In Spain, Erling Haaland produced another deadly display of finishing with a first half brace as Borussia Dortmund came from behind to beat Sevilla 3-2, while in England, Manchester City secured a 17th straight win in all competitions to move 10 points clear at the top of the Premier League after beating Everton 3-1 at Goodison Park.
All right, it's time for us to go, but we'll leave you with our Throwback Thursday play of the day. We relive our final in the 5-part series of World Cups. Next week, we take a look at the 2019 Women's World Cup, the biggest one yet. We'll tell you what we think and also some of the facts and stats about that Women's World Cup next week, Thursday. So don't miss that show. Remember, all of these are available on YouTube on at ZiFM Sport YouTube channel if you want to relive what our thoughts are of these 5 World Cups. 2010, the official song by Shakira, Mrs. Gerard Piqué. It's called Waka Waka, this time for Africa. For now, we'll catch you tomorrow for our preview show. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manande, out.